back to Shine Total Wellness. I'm Danielle, and today we are talking about iron deficiency anemia in pregnancy. We're talking about it because it's incredibly common. It comes with a whole host of side effects. It increases your risk for some maternal complications, and it's also completely preventable with the right kind of monitoring. So, first of all, why is iron deficiency anemia so common? It's actually the most common micronutrient deficiency in pregnant women. About 38% of pregnant women globally will develop anemia during their pregnancy. About 22% of American women will develop anemia throughout their pregnancy. And it's common for a couple different reasons. First of all, our blood volume increases pretty significantly during pregnancy by about 30 to 50%. And that's huge. Your body needs more iron to keep up with the increasing demand for red blood cell production. So that's the first reason. Now, we need about 450 milligrams of iron total throughout our pregnancy just to accommodate for the increase in blood volume. That's a lot of iron that we need. Now, in addition to that, your growing baby and the growing placenta, the organ that we develop during pregnancy to nourish the baby, is also going to use a lot of iron. About 350 milligrams of iron is used throughout pregnancy for the fetus and the placenta. So again, that's a lot of iron that we need to be taking in. And we can also expect to lose a decent amount of iron any way that we birth. So whether it's a vaginal birth or a C-section birth, we're going to be losing a lot of blood. And with that comes a lot of iron. About 250 milligrams total is lost during the average birth. So we need to make sure that moms have enough iron going into pregnancy and especially going into birth to make up for that demand on their body. Now, if you breastfeed, your body is going to continue to pull from your iron stores to get enough for the baby. That can leave an already depleted postpartum mama even further depleted and really not feeling like yourself. The last time that you want to have absolutely no energy and be feeling weak and lethargic is when you have to take care of a newborn, right? So again, making sure that you go into pregnancy and you go into birth with enough iron stores is super important. So I recommend staying on top of your stored iron or ferritin in every trimester of pregnancy. Now, the reason for this is that drop in ferritin, it's common during pregnancy because your body is using a lot of iron, but the ferritin drop is also the first sign that anemia could be developing. So anemia happens in stages. We don't want to wait until you're in full-blown iron deficiency anemia to correct the underlying imbalance, right? If we see that ferritin drop and we start supplementing and we start adding in iron-rich foods, we can make sure that we get ahead of it before you become a full-blown anemic and you're really feeling those symptoms. Now, I recommend going into pregnancy with a ferritin level of about 150 nanograms per milliliter. So if you look at the averages in a blood test range, ferritin usually starts at 11 for like average or normal, goes up to about 300 for women, and there's going to be variations depending on like the lab that you use, the test that you use. Now, if your ferritin is 11, you're technically in the normal range, you're not going to be flagged, but you're also going to feel like absolute crap. And if you go into pregnancy with a ferritin of 11 and your body is using tons and tons of iron on a regular basis to grow your baby, to increase the blood volume, you're going to become depleted really, really quickly. That can put you in a dangerous position going into birth as well. So going into pregnancy, ideally with a ferritin of around 150, is going to give you some stores so that your body can pull from what it has without becoming too depleted for birth. Of course, we want to stay on top of your levels per trimester. So have it checked in your first, second, and third trimester. And I really recommend checking your ferritin at least 8 weeks prior to birth. So sometime around week 32 for your third trimester check. Because if your ferritin is really low, we want to make sure that there's time to intervene and get you back up to a pretty good solid level of at least 50 nanograms per milliliters before birth so that you have enough stored iron and your body can compensate for the amount of blood that you can expect to lose. Interestingly, the average pregnancy uses about 100 units of ferritin. So that's why if we start at 150, we can go into birth with 50 and you can be more on the safe side. Now, even going into birth with 50, it's kind of low. Hopefully, you're going to be supplementing and eating iron rich foods, but that's like the minimum safe number, in my opinion, for going into birth. Okay, so some things that we want to know of before we even start talking about my tips for getting enough iron during pregnancy. The type of iron that you're eating is really important. And there are two forms of iron that are found in foods. There's heme iron and non-heme iron. And heme iron is found predominantly in animal foods. And this is the type of iron that is very bioavailable. What that means is your body can easily absorb and use the heme iron. We can get more of it from the foods that we're eating that contain the heme iron. The non-heme iron is predominantly found in plant foods, and it's not nearly as bioavailable. We don't absorb very much. It's harder for our bodies to use it. So really helpful, especially for people who don't eat a lot of animal foods, to know that yeah, if it says that there's, let's say, like 10 milligrams of iron in that food, but it's a plant-based source of iron, you're not going to absorb anywhere near that 10 milligrams. That can explain some of the deficiencies that you might be seeing if you're vegetarian or especially vegan. There are also anti-nutrients in a lot of plant foods that are going to further block the absorption of iron in our bodies. So, for example, grains, nuts, seeds, legumes do contain a lot of anti-nutrients. So even though, for example, chickpeas and kidney beans are decent sources of that non-heme plant-based iron, first of all, you're not going to be absorbing a lot of it because it's the non-heme iron, it's less absorbable. Second of all, the anti-nutrients in those legumes are going to further block absorption. So what can you do to get around that? Well, first of all, vitamin C enhances iron absorption. So anytime you're eating an iron-rich food, whether it's heme or non-heme iron, you're going to want to pair it with some vitamin C foods. So that could be berries, bell peppers, leafy greens, could be cruciferous veggies like broccoli and cauliflower and Brussels sprouts. Obviously, citrus everybody thinks of when we're thinking of vitamin C foods, but really most plant foods do contain some vitamin C, and that's going to help boost absorption a little bit. If you are vegetarian or vegan, we're going to talk about some further steps that you can take a little later in this video. So my recommendations for pregnant women to prevent pregnancy anemia. Number one, eat quality red meat 2 to 4 times per week, and the right serving is 4 to 6 ounces per serving. So red meat is going to be beef, bison, we can do lamb, we can do venison. Bison actually has the most iron per serving of the red meats. It has even a little bit more than beef. Now, when we're talking about eating animals in this country, I'm in the US, quality really does matter. Do I want you eating factory farmed cows 4 times a week? No, that wouldn't be good for a variety of reasons. But let's keep it simple. Let's opt for grass-fed as much as possible, organic when you can get it. Another big tip that I have, especially if you're going into pregnancy with low iron or you develop low iron or low ferritin during your pregnancy, is to include organ meats in your diet. 2 to 3 ounces per week is a really good place to start. If you're pregnant, you don't really need more than 3 ounces per week. Chicken liver is especially rich in iron, but beef and bison liver, those are also great. Some of the richest iron foods on the planet, and really just a nutrition powerhouse. It's almost like taking a multivitamin. Now, a lot of people have issues with liver, with, I don't know, the taste, the texture, like I get it. It's the whole thing. It's not the most palatable thing for me either. However, I do eat it regularly. And actually my 2-year-old eats it at least 2 to 3 days a week, because what we do is we chop it up very finely. We add it to our ground beef or our ground bison, and you don't taste it. It really just tastes like very high quality beef and bison. If you are not a fan of chopping it up yourself, or if sourcing is difficult, maybe you don't have a local butcher that you trust, a company that I really, really love is Force of Nature, and I will link them in the description box. I don't work for them. I swear I should, because I've recommended them to so many people, but they are a regenerative agriculture company. So they have grass-fed, organic, regenerative ground beef and ground bison that they've added the organ meats into. So you don't have to do any of the chopping or blending yourself. and it's amazing. I eat this all the time. So does my toddler. So taste-wise, I can assure you it's amazing. Now, liver in general is going to give you really easily absorbable forms of so many micronutrients. In addition to iron, it's got B12, folate, choline, vitamin D. It's a really potent source of CoQ10, which is an antioxidant that's essential for mitochondrial cellular energy. If you're not already eating organ meats, I really, really recommend adding them in, especially if you know that iron has been a problem for you in the past. Another tip that I have, and this one applies even if you're vegetarian or vegan, maybe especially if you are, is using a cast iron pan for cooking. So cast iron pans will actually transfer a decent amount of iron to the food that you're cooking, about 16% more iron per meal, which is really significant, especially if you're not getting a lot of iron in your diet. It's simple and easy to cook with. It's actually pretty easy to clean as well. If you're not a fan of the cast iron pan, if it's like too heavy or not to your liking, there is a device called the Lucky Iron Fish that I also really love. And it's a little cast iron device that you add to any like liquid-based meal. So it could be like soups or stews, things like that. And that will transfer some iron while your food is cooking, but gives you about 6 to 8 grams of iron per serving on top of whatever would already be in your food. Okay, so some tips for vegans who want to prevent anemia during pregnancy. First, if it's possible, consider introducing some quality animal foods that you're comfortable with. Maybe pastured eggs would be a really good way to get a little more iron, as well as that really bioavailable B12, choline, and animal-based omega-3 fats. It could be just a pregnancy thing or just a pregnancy and breastfeeding thing. But this is something to really think about if you're going into pregnancy completely vegan. Now, you're going to need to supplement with iron in some capacity during pregnancy if you're plant-based, probably also if you're vegetarian. And you're probably going to need more than the iron that's just in your prenatal multivitamin. So I would talk to your doctor, your OB, your midwife about the right supplement for you. And it's especially important for vegetarians and vegans to stay on top of their ferritin levels per trimester and really ideally get a baseline even before you go into pregnancy, since your baby is going to need that iron immediately upon conception. Now, if you are vegetarian, let's eat eggs every single day, 2 to 3 eggs per day. And let's also consider adding maybe some shellfish, since shellfish is a really potent source of iron. If you're omnivore curious, now would be the time to reintroduce some quality red meat into your diet for the iron, as well as so many other reasons that you can benefit from red meat during pregnancy. Focus on those plant-based sources of iron. So the non-heme potent iron sources, things like pumpkin seeds and dark chocolate every day, have more quinoa than rice, since quinoa is a higher iron grain, have legumes like lentils, chickpeas, and kidney beans daily, add spinach when you're cooking. But remember, these forms of iron are not as bioavailable. So the actual grams of iron that you're seeing on the can or the nutrition label is not going to translate to how much iron your body absorbs. Eat your iron-rich foods with a source of vitamin C or take a vitamin C supplement alongside your iron meals. If you're eating iron-rich foods regularly or you're supplementing regularly, but your levels remain lower than ideal, you probably have a gut issue that is preventing you from absorbing all of the micronutrients that you're eating. Now, if you're not able to absorb iron, you're probably not absorbing other micronutrients that are really important for pregnancy and fetal growth as well. So gut issues can really be a problem, especially during pregnancy. If that sounds like you, just click the link in the description box and book your complimentary 30-minute Discover call with me to troubleshoot the gut issues and form a plan of action moving forward. And likewise, if you're going into pregnancy anemic or you know you've become anemic during your pregnancy, you want to work with a prenatal nutritionist who can help correct that underlying imbalance, ideally well in advance of birth and potentially breastfeeding. I hope this video helps clear up some of the myths around iron and pregnancy. And I also have a list of 20 iron-rich foods to help prevent pregnancy anemia. It's a blog post that I've linked in the description box. So go ahead and check that out for some ideas on how to add lots of different sources of iron into your daily diet. As always, thank you so much for watching. Click the like button if you liked it, and I would love for you to subscribe so that you can get more videos like this on the regular. Have a great day.